KP, you've been through a ton over these last few years. I didn't think we would ever be in a position like this when we began our relationship. And before we get into anything, let me just tell you that with the whole lawsuit and everything else, when I first heard about it, it was concerning, surprising. And I know a lot of people just kind of, maybe walked away and wanted to distance themselves from you. And if I'm perfectly honest, that temptation was there for me, because you just start thinking about like, oh no, what if he's guilty and I'm associated with him? I better just get away. And it's like this natural self-preservation. And so I appreciate you even opening up your tax returns, your personal income tax returns to me, because I needed to see that. I need to see Danny's, your own son, because, well, maybe he's not getting rich, but maybe his son is, or it's just, I needed to be sure. And I needed to be able to speak with integrity to other people. I've been to your house, driven in that old VW Bug of yours. I've seen what you eat. Some of it's kind of creepy, but it's, it's just simple. And it's just like, I just go, how could anyone accuse someone like this about fraud and racketeering and try to take money? What could his motive be? Why would he take all this money? If he's not going to keep it for himself, like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I got so confused why this was going on, what it was. To me, the biggest crisis was the accusation that money was missing and fraud. And I was so in depression, but I just lost all hope. So many people just disappeared. I don't know what happened. But we had a lot to learn through all this. And I think I realized without suffering, we cannot serve the Lord.
And I want to apologize because I didn't realize the depths of how bad some of this made you feel.
No, you always remained deeply honest and loving and kind. I tell you something that's amazing. Over the years, Francis, like you, we have literally hundreds of people, Americans, Europeans, travel to Nepal, India, and Burma, and all these countries without even telling us they are there. And then they were looking for their children they were sponsoring, or the missionaries they were sponsoring, or church they built. Until this day, we never had one case where someone said, you guys are rats, you are stupid. I couldn't find my child, I couldn't find the church. I couldn't find the Jesus well. And some of these communications could not happen actually without these problems we are dealing with also. In one way, this is a wonderful season that the Lord allowed us to go through the test, so that right now we have 70,000 children we are helping. That would be beggars on the streets otherwise. But my dream is to see 500,000 children or more, helped, and the 42 million widows that are living without any hope, and they should be rescued, and on and on. And these are all possibilities that are incredibly powerful in the days to come.
Okay, let me ask you something that I think a lot of people will question. I mean, I understand it now because I understand our legal system, but I think some people are looking and going, okay, this doesn't make sense. According to the settlement, the settlement is for $37 million that GFA has to pay out. I understand it, but can you just kind of explain that so people understand?
Francis, this was my biggest struggle. As a matter of fact, when all the board members met and when the lawyers and all that, I was dying on the inside. How can we settle this thing and then pay this kind of money? And I always believed in submitting to authority. It will be 3-4 years longer, and it will take more money than the money we are settling with if we had to continue in the court to fight this battle. And it was advised by godly Christian leaders and everybody we knew, the best thing is to settle it. the other way was basically just to destroy everything we have and end the ministry. But my heart was always weeping for the 2 billion people that never heard Christ's name. And somehow, if this is not at God's time for us to close down everything here in the United States, we must do everything we can. And my greatest majority of everybody felt this was the way to go.
Yeah, the cost of continuing in the legal battle is outrageous. Now, distraction is like, just seems like such a small word to describe what this lawsuit has been, to you personally in the ministry. I mean, what a huge, massive distraction. And yet, over the last year, God's still been working through GFA. I read some of the stats. I mean, there were still a ton of people saved overseas. There was still a lot going on. Can you tell me about that?
And in one place, I never forget, our brothers walked all day climbing mountain to a dwelling place in the forest, just 200-300 families, and only 100 people died there, malaria, because of mosquitoes. And they carried 200 mosquito nets on their back and distributed. Not ever telling them you have to become a Christian or read this Bible, any of those. Just loved them and gave them help. They went back after 6 months, and people were going to ask, you people came and gave us, no one died since then. Why did you do that? And they borrowed from Mother Teresa's famous statement, because of the love of Jesus. I mean, that's that story actually, when I first heard it, I cried and cried. It's so beautiful story. But the most exciting thing, Francis, is we don't write there, over 600,000 people not only made a commitment to follow Christ, but participate in Sunday worship. And
just in 2018?
Just in 1 year.
600,000 new believers.
Yes. Usually we don't talk about those things, but I said, we suffered enough. It is better to say some more things, I think. And
let's talk about church for a second, because this is some of the questions that I think people want to know about. Like with Believers Church, it's, some people are accusing you of people kissing your ring. I mean, we dress a little differently.
We are as hardcore evangelical as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We are not Catholic, and we don't believe in transubstantiation in the Holy Communion. And but like the policeman, like the McDonald, the dress code is part of the historical church, always been, and that's one of the significant reasons. Plus, we are not an independent, man-centered little church. Like I'm the metropolitan of our church, but the metropolitan simply means first among equals. I have no greater power than the 30 other bishops. And Book of Acts, by the way, is not a theological book. When I say pure orthodoxy, I say Book of Acts is a foundation. All what you see in the Book of Acts is for us today, and we have to witness and preach the lost word and preach the gospel. And so people have misunderstood. We do not have a practice of people kissing my ring. But when people come to me or our bishops, they simply bow their head and say, Bishop, give me a blessing. So what do we do? We just touch their forehead and say, the Lord bless you. That's our teaching. And we follow the Nicene Creed and Apostles' Creed and the apostolic traditions and the holy traditions and their teaching, which is very radical. I'm not talking about ecclesiastical traditions, which comes and goes. But I have spent 15 years of my life in this journey now. I'm not kidding with you. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of books, day and night. And the whole thing began actually my deep hunger to know God. It's not to teach somebody else. And 2 Peter 1:4 says, you and I are called to partake of his divine nature. And one day I was meditating on that. It was like, this was before all the crisis and everything, by the way. It was like I was in the pitch darkness. All of a sudden, the sun just came up. I was thinking, I was called to partake of his divine nature. And that revolutionized my life. That knowing I mean, why America is a post-Christian nation? Why in England? I was just there recently. Every church building is sold, becoming bars and dancing clubs and all those things. I mean, I'm not against American Christianity as such, but I'm not against Reformation, anything like that. But when information becomes spirituality, then it's nothing less than work of the flesh to gain points with God. But theosis, that is 2 Corinthians 3:18, we see in the mirror his precious face, and the Holy Spirit then work within us and changing us into his nature only as we cooperate and only as we yield and obey. And this, if the Lord ever allow me, I'll write a book on my journey into understanding the Lord through the faith that was not just doctrines, but knowing him. And so our churches and all, I write lots of materials, but people misunderstand a lot of things about us.
I'd be happy to wear the same thing every day. Like, I don't have to think about it. Just throw a robe on, it's just whatever's right. Like, I just want to pursue whatever's right.
Jesus was a rabbi, and the woman came and said, if I only could touch the hem of his robe, I could be. I'm not saying you should wear a robe. And I love your head. I wish I had your head.
I wish I had crazy hair like you, but it's okay.
But Francis, the real thing is, when the time run out, when we see the Lord, then only we know all things as they are. And meanwhile, I think my prayer is, Lord, save me from myself and let me be yours. I cannot think of crying myself to sleep many times, but I have now, because I'm overcome by his love and the suffering and the pain and the agony of the world. And I just realized I just got a few more years left and do everything I can as Jesus did. That's all. And then it was 40 years ago, I was in North Carolina driving on the highway. One of the first supernatural experiences I had with the Lord. And the Lord said, don't strive, don't fight to make anything happen. All those who join with you, I will bless them. This is my work. And that was the first experience of freeing me from making anything happen. So if I said to my colleagues, if GFA closed down states, or if you had to go through more suffering and get crucified, what is it? This life is very short. But all those who will be part of us when they get to heaven, they will meet millions of people that never met before, because we live for this. That's all the idea we have in our head. I just traveling through thousands of miles to unreached areas and seeing people, and cried, seeing the leper colonies and the slum dwellers and the children on the streets. And these are people, Jesus loves them. And this is all we are consumed about. And people fight about this doctrine, that doctrine, all those things, that is so irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to hear that even amidst all of this and the accusations, like, the work has gone on, because I think people lose sight of something so much bigger. I mean, I'd love to just hear, like, in your personal journey, do you feel like that concern for the lost and the concern for the suffering is growing in your life? Or is it something you're just trying to hold on to? And, is it increasing?
Well, Francis, this last 3 years of this walking through forest fire, I feel ashamed to say, but it's true. I came to a place of such pain. I said, God, is this all drama or magic, or where are you? And then all I could hear is silence. But then, God used my wife long ago in my life um, to read Psalm 73, and there's a verse in there that anchored her life. Whom have I in heaven but you, and on earth I desire no one beside you. But then you read the whole psalm, you talk about a godly man who said, I just got to give up my faith. But those times, Francis, I forced myself to go silent for a day or two. Just say, God, I just don't know what to do. I'm a lost human being. Please help. And I think every time the Lord was faithful to rekindle the fire within my heart. And I'm not saying there is any glory in poverty and suffering and tears, no. But when I sense I'm doing things not because, His love and passion, I know I'm losing my focus. And then I basically stop and I say, Lord, I'm struggling, I'm losing. Please help me. And I pray a prayer out of several prayers every single day. Please, dear Jesus, don't let my heart stop breaking for the lost world. And this I learned from Dr. Bob Pierce, the founder of World Vision. I was 20 years old at that time in Singapore. The prayer he prayed, let my heart break with the things that break the heart of God. And one thing I learned over the 15 years of my spiritual journey with Lord, that is nothing I can do myself to be a spiritual person. He only can do it if I would yield to Him. And I pray a prayer every day, at least 50 times. Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, this sinner, which is the famous Jesus prayer from the first century. And what that does is it helped me realize no matter how many sermons I preach, how many books I write, really, nothing is going to make me God. I'm a struggling human being. I need His grace and mercy. And He's been faithful.
You talk about I maybe have a couple years left, this and that, and you're going to stand before God. What do you envision? Like what that moment's going to be? I mean, is it all like just I can't wait? Is there any fear? Is there like what are your thoughts when I talk about this? Because you talk about it very openly.
Yeah,
That's why
Franz, I think about it all the time because it is 40 years ago when I was writing something with my favorite fountain pen, Mont Blanc pen, which I had from Europe. This voice I had. Yeah, I'm not a charismatic hearing voices, things like that. I just wanted, it's a strange thing. So you like that pen? And I looked around my room and said, who is this? And I spoke out and said, of course I do. It's $600 cost that pen. The next question, who's going to use it 100 years from now? And I went numb. And I realized, God's asking me a question. This was the beginning of GFA, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And I was learning what it means to be obedient and walk away from everything and do His will. I cannot have the world and Him too. And but thing is, I think about my life, which I learned. It's a walk. It's a journey, and there are forest fires and valleys and accusations and great times and people say wonderful things about you and all that. But finally, the walk ends when I see Him face to face. And the moment I think that thought, Francis, what comes to my mind, long ago somebody gave me a birthday gift of a painting of a weary, worn out, tramp-looking man in the clouds and Jesus embracing him, and he just collapsed his head on his shoulder. And I see me like that. This been a very sad, in some ways very lonely, difficult journey. But in that last week, I was saying, Lord, I just want to come home. And then the Lord said, you're forgetting something very fast. What Paul said, I want to go home, but I will stay around for your sake. And then I changed my prayer. And I said, Lord, whatever time you want me to be here, I will do whatever. Only give me grace. And so looking forward to the end of the journey, for me, I wouldn't say this was true for 40 years. At least in the last 15 years of my knowing him, it is one of that image of finally being with him.
And don't you, like, I know for me, like sometimes I don't have peace because my life is too easy. And I want to be that guy that collapses at the end. Kind of like what Paul says, like I'm done. I ran the race. I've been poured out like this drink offering. I'm just like, like we want to end that way. And I know, obviously, through the pain and difficulty of the last few years, but isn't there a side of you that where you almost have more peace? Because I think we're supposed to spend our lives feeling exhausted by the end and going, I poured it all out. I left it all there. And now I'm going to collapse into your arms.
Yeah, Francis, an absolute truth. That is, through my painful journey and walk even today, when I, go to sleep the last few minutes, when I feel that I am not looking to find joy and satisfaction from my pain and suffering, and I realize, I'm fulfilling Christ's suffering in my flesh, I go to bed with great joy and gratitude that, that I was chosen from a tiny village to serve him. I never could imagine. And but one thing, and I just got a manuscript for a large book titled "How to Stay in the Battle." I wrote that thing 4 or 5 years ago, but never got published. But then I was thrust into this thing, and I have realized without suffering, we cannot know the Lord, nor can we serve him.
Let me ask you one more thing. It's about anger. Like, were there times, because I wrestle with this sometimes, where, and I'm only 50, 51. But sometimes, you feel like I've lived this consistent life, or I've tried so hard for all these years, experienced so much, and then some 20-year-old, just knows so much more than you because, he just got out of Bible college, or he has a feeling in his heart and writes things and accuses and this and that. And you just, sometimes I'm like, okay, this 20-year-old's teaching me how to raise kids, and doesn't even have a kid. And I have a grandkid, and there's this pride, and I just have to fight and go, you know what? No, God, it's by your grace, by your grace, by your grace. So I just try to imagine being in your shoes, having lived this life and to see all these things. And most of us, like myself, I doubt I'll see the day where there's a fruit of 600,000 people in a year and everything else. And yet, meanwhile, there's all these people that have their opinions of you, and they'll write it with such animosity and arrogance and everything else. Like, I gotta imagine there's some that you have to deal with the anger, or maybe not.
Francis, you're describing my story in many ways. All this stuff I faced exactly what you're talking about. And maybe 15, 20 years ago, I would have a whole different reaction. But what now I do is basically go silent and say, Lord, please have mercy on him. Help them to know. And do not answer. I find myself saying fewer words to people. Although I know what to argue and talk about, I just don't say nothing because they are not in a place they can learn. I used to be a lawyer for God, but now, I'm a dumb person. Many times especially younger people and people who have no clue about the Lord, that now it don't trouble me hardly at all. And I just,
Wow, that's good.
it's not.
I mean, it's just a different time now.
Yeah.
Whereas, I remember when I started in ministry, no one could get to you and accuse you because there was no social media.
Yeah.
Now it's like anyone has a platform. Anyone can tweet things out and then it gets retweeted. I don't even know how it all works, but it just gets out there. And so it's hard to have that patience and that grace. And yet, I was just curious how you
The best is not to read any of those stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't. It's just that people send it to me. Like my friends will say, hey, did you hear what this guy said about you? It's like, don't tell me. I'm trying to just stay away from it all.
Our problems with France is still not over yet.
Okay.
We still have to come up with $10 million, which we don't have to, for the final settlement. And my prayer and hope is that all these people who, claim their money back, which they will get, that they will understand this is the greatest investment they made in their life to touch the lost world. And that, but that's what we are praying for. A miracle will happen.
No, that's good. Thanks for everything. Thanks for your time. Thanks for, going through the process and being patient with me.
And I feared during the crisis, that you will be so attacked because of our friendship, and you will walk away. I feared that sometime, but I thought, he's a very smart man, and he will find his way to find out if we are real or not.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you so much for your friendship and your kindness, and all I can tell you as a human encouragement, I can guarantee you when we see the Lord, there'll be multitudes around the throne because of your kindness and love and support and trusting us. And you'll never be disappointed. And the same thing I'm looking for someday.